Yumi's back there. Yumi, want to discuss with the great peoples gimbal things? What up, AFAM? Kitty here with Atola Visuals. For those who don't know, I run this YouTube channel where we do gimbal reviews, camera reviews, some filmmaking tutorials, a little bit of travel here and there, event coverage. I also own and operate a video production company here in San Francisco. That was a very long intro, I apologize. But today I'm going to be discussing with you my main gimbal right here. This is the Moza Air 2. I've been using her for a little over half a year now, so we've become great friends. If you want to check out my review, you can check that out up here. So today I'm going to be discussing with y'all just basic things like setup, how to balance. If you have some troubleshooting shake issues, I'll discuss that as well. The basic setup that come straight out of the box, and also my personal settings. So if you need some skip through, there's time codes down below, so you don't have to waste any time. I want to thank Gudsen Moza for sponsoring this video so I can drop this knowledge and help you guys out with your new gimbal setup. Or if you're still a little confused and it's months later, I'm here for you. Alright, let's get into the video, shall we? The most important thing about gimbal is always balancing, no matter if you're changing lenses, if you're adding microphones, any little different thing you add to this gimbal, you're gonna have to rebalance. So that is very important, and it'll minimize shake and vibrations later on. First off, make sure you have the lens on your body, the batteries in the slots, the lens caps off. If you're adding microphones or anything else and you need to connect cables, put that on right away before you balance, because it's gonna off kilter the weight later on. Put that quick plate on. If you have heavier lenses, I suggest moving it all the way forward. This is how I set up my 24-70 G Master. For this Moza gimbal, it's got kind of like a dual quick plate system. It's one to make it easier, so if you take your camera off and on the gimbal, you can snap it back on and it'll keep its balance and you don't have to rebalance it later on. And then the second system there is to move it back and forth to actually balance. So one's more of like a locking mechanism for the actual quick plate, and the second part is to actually move it back and forth. So it looks a little different from the other gimbals that maybe you've had in the past. So balance that first as best as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're probably gonna have to go back to it after the next step, and it's totally normal for every gimbal. So don't worry. Go on to the next lock here. Balance it as best as you can. Don't forget the very last one here. All you gotta do is tilt it over a little bit, move it back and forth, and make sure it's pretty level, and you're good to go. I do kind of a little last check to make sure everything is really perfect and dialed in, and boom, easy to go. If you keep using the same camera and lens setup, you won't have to do this over and over and over again. If you're gonna be throwing on a zoom lens like I have here and extends when it zooms, go for the median and balance it that way. So for me, this 24-70, it was at like a 35-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect, but definitely account for that. Even though these motors are pretty strong, I could zoom all the way out and still pretty balanced right now, even though I balanced it to a 24, but it always helps, so you don't have to do it later. Got you. All right, once it's all balanced and perfectly ready to go, turn on the camera first if you have the cable on, and then turn on the gimbal. Dun, dun, dun. You're golden. Setup is done. Congratulations. For some of you, if you have a little bit of shake or vibrations when you turn it on, don't worry, you just need a little auto tune, which is really easy to do. Push this button right here and hold it down. It'll do this little jig. Give it a second because it's weighing out the weight that's on it currently. I just love doing it. I don't know why, it's so funny. I'll do it 3 times. And boom, it should be fine. If you're still having issues, go into the app and do a full calibration. Sometimes when these gimbals are traveling, they might get nudged or bumped. So a quick calibration is really easy to do. You just go into the app and it'll pretty much show you how to lay it down, and it's really quick and easy. For some people who are having trouble connecting their camera to the gimbal, for me, I'm using a Sony A7riii For others, it might be different. But first, when you first set it up, go into the menu settings and click camera set, select, and I use Sony multi. To select it, push the right button there, and you won't have to adjust that later on ever again because it'll just remember. And make sure your cable is connected to this port and this port here. If it doesn't work through here, try going into the Moza Master app and set it through there. For different camera models, you will have different compatibilities with this gimbal here. So for instance, my Sony A7riii is compatible with triggering the shutter for video, for photos, for motion time lapse. If you're gonna take photos, I do a lot of that work as well. And it also charges the Z battery, which is really nice, so you don't have to change batteries throughout the day. But I have a link down below for the compatibilities. It's changing constantly, like they just added the Nikon Z6. So be sure to check it and also keep your gimbal updated. But the best part is they're always updating this firmware, so make sure you stay up to date. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is set it into a boot mode. To do that, you hold the Moza joystick and press the power button. And then it'll say boot mode. You could do it through your computer, but I always find it easier just going through the app. You'll be all types of updated and fresh, ready to go. Oh, the basic settings. I know there's a lot of buttons and things going on and different number of clicks for each button to memorize, so I'm gonna provide that here, or maybe a link down below to help you guys out. You can print it out, carry with you. I don't know if people print things anymore, maybe just save it onto your phone as a bookmark so it's easy to remember. But after a while you get used to it and you don't have to think about it so much. For instance, like holding this button will trigger auto tune. If you double click, it'll trigger inception mode. Voila. If you double click the trigger, it'll center it. If you double click 3 times, it'll give you selfie mode. But who's gonna selfie mode on a Moza Air 2? Ain't me. But if you're strong, hey, there you go. I mostly just use it to display for my tutorials, so what are you gonna do? And then you could really customize the tilt, roll, and pan here based on how many times you push this joystick. This is probably the most confusing part. So, if you double click, it'll be the roll. If you tap it once, it'll be the pan. And the L means lock, the F means follow. If you click 3 times, you'll access the tilt. And then if you don't click enough times, you might screw it up and mess it up. So, practice makes perfect. Good luck, everyone. Thank God there's a screen. That's very helpful. I'm gonna quickly go through my personal settings. First up is the dial here. If you roll it around, you could actually change the speed on which you pan, tilt, and roll. For me, I normally like to have it between 20 and 25. It's really good for orbitals. I really like the fact that you could change the joystick speed here because with some gimbals it might go too fast, shoot the gimbal up, and you're trying to get a nice slow tilt down as you're maneuvering it. I highly recommend to change the joystick speed based on how you shoot. So gimbal sets, operations, and joystick there. Sensitivity. And for me, I have my left right at 19 and my up down at 15. Test it out, see how you feel, but that's how I keep mine. You can copy those settings too. So if you hold the trigger once, usually in default mode, it'll be all lock, but I have it as tilt follow because my default setting here is tilt lock. I just use it all the time. If I want to change it, I don't have to click 3 times on the joystick, which is just insane. I just put it on the trigger button, you hold it, and all of a sudden it's follow mode. For my trigger, I customize it through the menu here. It's really easy to do. All you gotta do is go through, click the center button, and then go to gimbal set, operations, trigger, and you'll have different options here. Some of the ones, like the 3 clicks, have less options than the other ones. So this wheel here is normally used for focus pulling, but for me, I don't use that at all. I usually use autofocus or manual. As you can see, I set mine to roll, because I know sometimes when you're shooting on a gimbal, you might have a little off center on the horizon, and it's really just easy to adjust that way. So to change that, all you gotta do is actually push this button to go through all the different settings. If you're gonna use their eye focus, You can change it back and forth pretty easily, and you don't even have to go through the menu settings through here or the app. It's also really easy to do if you want to do some crazy Dutch angles. Oh, the beloved spinny inception mode. This is really easy to do, especially on this gimbal. So to access inception mode, you double click this button here and it'll start pointing up. The good thing about this is with other gimbals, I know you just use the joystick to spin left or right. But with this one, if you actually turn on the dial, you don't need hands. So you can change the speed between 0 and 10 or -1 and -10 to go the other way. So depending on how fast and dizzy you want to make your audience, there you go. -10 to 10. And then the joystick, my speed is currently set to 3 and -3. Just a nice slow spin, that's all I need. And double click the trigger to recenter it. Manual positioning is something I like to use on all my gimbals, and you can definitely set them or turn them off. For instance, if you want to tilt up and set it really quickly, you can. I have my tilt and my pan set to manual positioning, but as a note, you have to have the tilt and the pan in lock mode before you can do it. Because if your pan is on follow, it won't work, as you can see. To change those settings, go into the menu, click the center button, gimbal set, motor, and scroll all the way down. After follow, it'll say manual pause, position there. So I have my tilt on, my roll off, and my pan on. But if you just want tilt, turn that on, yada yada yada, customize it yourself. So the dead angle is kind of important to know if you use a gimbal. In simple terms, it's pretty much the reaction time as you turn your hand when it will start to follow you. So if you're walking straight, for instance, and you kind of have shaky hands, it won't be shifting back and forth. It'll give you some leeway and stay straight. So to change that, it's pretty easy to do. Access the menu, go through gimbal set, click right, then click motor, click follow, and you'll see dead angle there. For me, I set my tilt at 2, my roll at 3, and my pan at 0. So very low settings. If you put it higher, you'll definitely notice that it won't follow you as quickly. But you can change that up based on your preference. If you want different settings, you have 3 configurations that you could save it to. If you're familiar with the Ronin S, you have 3 modes on there as well. So if you want a really smooth, maybe configuration number 1, and then maybe more of like a fast medium, a number 2, you could definitely save them so you don't have to change every single setting and dial those in every time. Last but not least, to throw in a little bit of a bonus, is some shooting techniques. So you could have this dialed in, balanced perfectly, but if the operator don't know how to use it and be really smooth with it, you're gonna have problems no matter how perfect of a gimbal it is. So, first up, I hate to break it to you, but you're gonna have to hold your breath. For most of my gimbal shots, I'm holding my breath, for real. No joke, I know some of you can relate, but even with handheld, I'm holding my breath. Just that little bit of movement sometimes will just bring your arms up and down just a little bit, and you do not want that. Second of all, ninja walk. You have to practice the ninja walk. This will not get rid of your walking bounces unless you maybe have like that whole vest system or a 5-axis gimbal or maybe like a Steadicam and it has that bouncy springy arm. You're gonna have to walk kind of weird, but after a while you just don't care how you look. It doesn't look cool, I'll tell you that, but it'll make your footage a lot smoother. So bend your knees, work out your thighs, and this is your position. Walkie, 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 walkie. Definitely work out because it'll work out your back, it'll work out your legs, it'll work out your arms here. So I have a gimbal workout tutorial here. If you don't go to the gym, there's exercises you could do pretty much anywhere. But if you do go to the gym, I highly recommend doing leg workouts, squats, deadlifts, and also I like to take maybe you probably could hold more, but I take like a 25-pound dumbbell and I'll literally just walk around the gym like I was holding a gimbal. People look at me weird, but whatever. I'm gonna have the arms and the strength for when I actually have to shoot because this isn't 25 pounds, but I'm prepared for it. So I'll just practice going back and forth around the gym, do some orbitals, walk backwards so you get the footwork too, because you're also practicing the footwork. So I know it's a lot to take in if you're a beginner, but you get used to it and you won't have to think about it anymore once you get used to it. And lastly, practice, 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 practice. I've been using gimbals, I feel like, for a couple years now, and I still think I'm like not the best at gimbal operation, and I'm still working out. I'm still going slowly and working on my moves. So have fun. I'm so excited that you guys, if you guys are new gimbal users, you're gonna have a ton of fun and your production value is definitely gonna skyrocket. So, and you also get a workout as well, which is always nice. So have fun. Hopefully this helped you guys out. Let me know if you have any further questions down in the comments below. What you think, Moza? You think we discussed everything? That was a pretty long video. I have a plethora of other gimbal videos as well if you want to check them out. Here, I just did a Moza motion time-lapse tutorial with this guy. If you want to learn how to do that, I suggest you stop by. But thanks for hanging out with me. Find my IG because I post there on the daily. You do you, fam, and I'll see you when I see you. Done. Done. All right, cut.